12 months ago, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing with my life. I felt trapped in a career I'd lost my passion for, but that has all changed because I've quit my job as a doctor to follow my dreams. If you're in your 20s and you're struggling with big life decisions and you feel like you have no idea what you're doing, then hello, welcome, because by the end of this video you'll know how I came to my decision, why I feel more purpose than ever before, what my next steps are, and how to find purpose and direction in your own life by answering all the questions that you've sent in. But why on earth should you listen to me? My name is Faye and I'm a doctor in my 20s, and for the last 5 years I've shared the biggest challenges that I've faced in my own life to try and help you through those challenges too. If you don't want to miss another video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button with the notification bell on. These are all the questions that I'm going to answer, time-stamped if you would like to skip. And without further ado, I think that means that I have to get into the video, which is terrifying because I don't really make many personal videos anymore, and I've procrastinated making this one for the best part of a month. Before I explain my decision to quit, I need to explain when I started feeling disconnected with my dream of being a doctor. For that, we need to go back to my second year of medical school when my life completely changed forever. Because the first question is asking, how did you start your YouTube? If you ever wanted to start a YouTube and you were so worried about what other people would say, then this was me. Like basically every girl in the UK, I was obsessed with Zoella and Tanya Burr, and every single time I had friends over at my house, I would always force them to film dance routines and vlogs. Then when I got to medical school, I felt so out of place. My number one concern in my first year was just fitting in and really overthinking what other people would think of me, full stop, without introducing YouTube into the mix. Then I saw people like Ali Abdaal and Karma Medic do it, and at the time, there weren't any women in that space, but I still felt very anxious and uncomfortable with putting myself out there on the internet. And then through being in medical school and through being on hospital placements, I came face to face with the realities of sickness and our short time on this planet and mortality as human beings. It felt like a massive smack across the face, showing me just how precious life is and how it is way too short to not follow your dreams. So on a random day in December, super impulsively, I picked up this old camera I had lying around in my mum and dad's house, and I filmed my first ever YouTube video. And I was super anxious. I was so uncomfortable on camera. I had no idea how to edit. It is probably one of the most boring videos you will ever find on YouTube, but that was not what was important. The important thing was that I started, because ever since that day where I impulsively picked up my camera, my life has never been the same since. That was almost 6 years ago, and my editing got better. I started filming on my phone and then eventually invested in better equipment. But most importantly, I've built a community of like-minded women who have stuck with me and watched as I made my biggest mistakes and shared my lessons in the hopes that you could learn too. Every single day I count my lucky stars that I just went for it, because I cannot tell you how close I was to not pressing record that day. But I picked up that camera and I just posted, and even when it got hard, even when no one was watching, I just kept posting and trying to learn and grow with every single video that I published on Sunday at 6 p.m. YouTube is easily the best thing that has ever happened to me, and they're actually celebrating their 20th birthday. So if you were looking for a sign to start, then this is absolutely it. A common concern I hear when people are deciding whether they want to start a YouTube or not is YouTube is not what it once was. It's not the era of Tanya Burr and Zoella, but YouTube is absolutely not dead. Most of my subscribers have actually come within the last 2 years, and I think it's a platform where you have time and space to make a really, really, really meaningful connection with your audience, and that should not be overlooked. Did you ever think about quitting in medical school, and what stopped you? Pretty early on in medical school, I felt like I didn't fit in. If I'm being honest, it was a little bit of a culture shock. There is a lot of privilege in medicine, and if you've never experienced that privilege before, it can be really eye-opening and isolating. But that all came to a head when on the first day of my final year, I opened up an email that contained a picture of me in a bikini that was sent by one of my lecturers that definitely was not meant for me. I'm going to be honest, this bit is a little bit hard for me to talk about because it's probably one of the most personal things I've gone through in my life. I had a lot of shame attached to these situations. I put a lot of blame on myself for not feeling like I fitted in at medical school and I wasn't good enough, or I was to blame in so many ways, and I'm all for sticking up for what I think is right. But at the point that this email was sent, I was so beaten down by feeling like I was screaming out logic and pragmatism and common sense, and no one was listening. And it was like this culture that just would not budge on what they believed was right and wrong, and it was completely black and white. There was no grey, and you either fell in line or, to be completely honest, got terrorised for it. I cannot explain how fed up I was as soon as I saw that email, because I felt as though, why on earth am I breaking my back, sitting these exams every year, doing well in these exams, never getting in trouble academically, doing well on placement, just to be attacked for things that I felt were so trivial in the grand scheme of the issues that we faced on a daily basis, which were literally life and death. At that point, YouTube was a really stable form of income for me, so I decided that I would like to test the waters on treating YouTube like a full-time job. And if you've been here a while, you will remember that I made a video talking about that at the time that I have since deleted, because the video came across quite clickbaity because there was this huge part of the story that I couldn't share. And that was not my intention. My intention was honestly just to verbally word vomit everything I was feeling, to process it for myself. But that's obviously not how it came across. And anyway, when I made that video and I wanted to quit medical school, I rented an Airbnb in Milan. I stayed there for 4 weeks, away from my friends, away from my family, and I just treated social media like a full-time job from 9 to 5, Monday through to Friday, to see if I enjoyed it or if it filled this medicine-shaped hole in my life. And the truth is, it didn't. I missed medicine, I missed the science. My mum is definitely one of my biggest inspirations, and she's been a public servant her entire career, from teaching sex ed in schools to being a nurse to now helping vulnerable kids with ADHD and autism. I've just always known that I want to be in a career where I feel as though I'm having a tangible impact. And at the time, that was not what my YouTube was about. My YouTube was about me. It was my vlogs. It was my life. It was something I really enjoyed at the time, but it didn't give me that sense of purpose. So that is what stopped me quitting. But it left me with this dilemma of wanting to continue YouTube, but also wanting to continue in my career as a doctor, and not really knowing how I could possibly ever combine the two things in a way that didn't leave me burnt out trying to juggle too many things at once. What's the hardest part about being a doctor for you? I want to preface all of this by saying that I've actually enjoyed working as a doctor so much more than I thought. When I was in medical school and I was surrounded by this culture that I really did not like, and I thought that that represented what being a doctor and medicine looked like. And then when I became a doctor and I worked with so many incredible people who I felt aligned so much more with my own personal values, I realised that it wasn't medicine that was necessarily the problem. It was a small group of individuals that were stuck in the Stone Age. And if starting a YouTube has taught me anything, it is you cannot live your life based on the opinions of others. That being said, life as a doctor has posed its own challenges. One being that in the UK you rotate through various specialties, which is different to American training where you go straight into a specialty that you've applied for. And we don't really get that much say in the specialties that we rotate through. So I really wanted a rotation in obs and gynae, GP and A&E, and I did not get a single one of those. And I really fell in love with some rotations that I had that I really did not expect to, like palliative, but other specialties like orthopedics, I again felt like a fish out of water amongst a load of posh men. I don't think we talk enough about how exhausting it is to go into work every single day and do something that you're not passionate about. I'm so passionate about women's health, and I've been like that since I saw my mum teaching sex ed, since I went to Zambia and worked in a women's health clinic, since wanting to do obs and gynae in medical school, but I did not get a chance to do any of that in my first 2 years as a doctor. And that's not because I didn't do well in medical school, it's because of the way the system is set up. So when I felt no fulfillment from my job every single day, YouTube became that source of fulfillment. It allowed me to spend time on topics I genuinely cared about and then share it with a community of like-minded individuals when sometimes at work I felt a little bit alone. So then when it came to deciding whether I wanted to apply to a specialty, I felt completely lost because I didn't actually have experience working in those specialties. But I couldn't say I was really passionate about the specialties I did experience. I also really hated the pressure to take this traditional route in medicine, to get a training job and then keep going until you're a consultant, and then look back and realise half your life has passed you by and wonder whether it was even worth it. Most of all, I hated that working in the NHS often means that you never truly feel like you've done your patients justice because you're working in a system where there isn't enough time, there isn't enough resources. You're constantly apologising for things that aren't within your control, like waiting lists or access to treatment. And don't even get me started on the political and financial landscape. You may be surprised that I have not mentioned the emotional toll because yes, that is rough, but I think it's completely unavoidable. Everything else I've mentioned are issues with the system that can be changed, and that's what makes it so frustrating. But B, most importantly, I have grown so much as a person from witnessing the most intense and dramatic days within people's lives, because that is what happens in hospital. When healthcare workers go into work every morning, that is their day-to-day, but for most people, the only time they go into a hospital is when they or someone they love is very unwell. For us, where it's just run of the mill, for them it is a day that they will remember probably for the rest of their lives. And it would be very easy for me to take that emotional burden home with me, but in my opinion, that is doing a disservice to the people who I've seen suffer, because where I get to go home every evening and spend time with my loved ones, they don't. And that is the biggest blessing personally I've had from being a doctor. It is this extreme appreciation for life, for health, for the ability to not take anything for granted ever. But the next question asks, how did you manage a full-time job and YouTube? And that, my friends, logistically was the biggest nightmare of the last 2 years, because when I graduated and I started working full-time, I was waking up at 5 a.m. every single morning to work 2 hours before work so that I could get up a YouTube video every single week. That is a one-way ticket to Burnout Town. It is not sustainable by any means. But the next question is probably the hardest consequence I had to deal with, trying to juggle all these different areas of my life. Did you ever have to deal with medical school or working life coming in between your friendships? My first year as a doctor, I basically became a recluse. I had to keep all my days off for filming and planning and editing, so that often meant I was saying no to plans. And at the same time, I'm in work in hospital seeing patients who don't have any visitors come visit them for weeks and weeks on end. And it really reminds me that the most important thing that we have in this world is our community, and I was completely neglecting mine. How have you found managing a relationship outside medical school and working as a doctor? There is no way I could have got through the last 2 years without my boyfriend, because my boyfriend cooks dinner every single night so that I can get on my laptop and work, and he is always making sure that I'm fed, that I've got water. Living together definitely helped. However, what I would say is when you live together, you do start to take the time you have together for granted, and you have to make a concentrated effort to not become complacent and still do special things outside of the flat, which is difficult when you're tired and you just want to lie on the sofa and do absolutely Nothing. How can a young woman identify a relationship that helps her grow into her best self? You know what I've learned to spot a mile off, and it is probably one of my greatest skills? The difference between people who are your biggest cheerleaders and when people do not want the best for you. I'm going to say something that may shock you. It is not always as glaringly obvious as you may think. If my boyfriend had ever, even once, said anything that I thought was trying to put me down, he would be gone within an instant. That is the biggest red flag, because it shows that someone is not secure in themselves. And if someone is not secure in themselves, they will try and drag you down with them. There's a lot of stuff I see about dating online that I think is so toxic. Probably because I have never shared how me and my boyfriend met, but if I told most of the dating gurus online, they would poo their pants. My first date with my now boyfriend was hands down the worst date I've ever been on, because my boyfriend, he takes a while to crack his shell, and before that, he's just not a talker. And honestly, I think I kept him around because I was bored. And there's so much dating advice around now that treats relationships so disposably and doesn't encourage you to have time to really get to know someone. And if I'd dismissed that person because of something I'd seen online, I now would not have the most caring, considerate person in my life who is my biggest cheerleader. Do you think you would stay in medicine if the culture was different or more supportive? The NHS is struggling, and so are the people in it. I think lots of people are burnt out and have lost their passion, but the worst part about that is people who are burnt out, people who are unhappy, occasionally have a tendency to tear other people down as well, which is something that I've struggled with a little bit over the last 2 years. My confidence took a big hit. But I am a tough cookie, I have pretty thick skin, and although the culture in the NHS can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming and negative, I have been so lucky with my supervisors, my seniors. I've met some really inspiring people. How did it feel when you actually decided to quit? Do you ever find that you have the deepest conversations when you're driving and you're not looking at the other person in the eye? I was driving back to North Wales, so I had 7 hours in the car last November, and I was basically word vomiting my dilemma to my boyfriend. I loved being a doctor more than I thought I would, and I still really had this drive of wanting to make a difference in women's health, but on the other hand, I really loved YouTube, and it felt like my creative outlet, and I didn't want to give up either of them. In that car, that felt like my only option, because I was very quickly burning myself into the ground, until I had this incredible eureka moment where I realised I didn't have to take the traditional route. I could do a women's health masters, develop my knowledge, and share everything that I'd learned on YouTube. And that may not be what was expected of me, but it was the way I would feel most aligned. The $1 million question, will you ever go back? Right now, no. I really want to see how the next year goes and whether I enjoy it. I spoke to my supervisor earlier in the year, and she actually encouraged me to not do any shifts in the next year, because when she took a whole year off to do research, she actually got the itch to go back by giving herself some space. But because I'm quite busy at the moment, and I think I have been for the last few years, I don't think I'll get that urge to go back. I would really love to take more of a research route and try and make a difference from outside the system. What are you nervous about? I love the freedom that YouTube gives me. However, I have found a structured routine. Having to be in work at a certain time has been very beneficial for my ADHD brain. But I am a very goal-orientated person, and my next goal is going to be my 1 million plaque. So hopefully that will give me the structure that I need next year, moving into this chapter of my life that is a lot more self-directed. I'm still nervous about the opinions of others. I've got a lot better at it over the years, but in reality, I've probably just been more busy that I haven't really had time to marinate too much on what other people are thinking about me. I'm nervous that I'll get jealous watching my friends progress in their careers and start their specialty training when I'm not. But I know it's better to try and fail than to have never tried at all. How are you funding your masters? Another reason to start a YouTube, guys, because there is absolutely no way that I would be able to fund my masters without YouTube. YouTube has given me complete financial flexibility to follow my dreams. I've been able to financially support myself from anywhere in the world whilst making content that I'm passionate about. And doing my masters, I know that I will be able to learn even more about a topic I love. And then sharing that on a platform that has allowed me to follow my dreams seems like the ultimate full circle moment. How are you feeling about your masters? I have never felt more aligned in my entire life. I'm so excited to really stick my teeth into something that I've cared about for so long and ultimately try and solve the shambles that is women's health in this country. I'm gonna end on this question. Do you think medicine is worth it? Yes. Absolutely. There is not a single doubt in my mind. Learning about your own body is so powerful, and I am biased, but I think it is the most incredible career choice in the world. It really is the current political climate that makes it such a tough job, more than the job itself. And that is where I have to caveat my answer by saying you have to go into medicine with an open mind, because when it gets hard, it gets really hard. And I think knowing you have another option, even if you never take it, is so liberating. I think I enjoyed my job a lot more than other people because I've never felt trapped. Keeping your options open might look like a willingness to move to another country, or being interested in research, or having your own business, or just doing something else with your time other than medicine. You also need to know your why. My why for so long has been to address inequalities in women's health, and I realised I didn't need to be in a hospital from 9 to 5 every day to do that. If your why is money or a title, then it will get so much harder. In terms of other paths, when I was in school, my best friend's mum used to always say she thought I'd be a director because I always had my camera out and I was always filming. That is very different to medical school, but when I started YouTube, that was my way of scratching that itch. And now to be living this life where I'm making 8-year-old Faye's dreams come true by doing both makes me feel so incredible. Now you've heard me waffle on for far too long, you might want a video that's actually going to add some value to your life by watching this one here all about how I transformed my skin, or this one just below that has been recommended just for you based on what you're interested in. Maybe let me know down below how long ago it was that you came here and joined this like-minded community of women. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you in the next video. Mwah!